You're the new PD, you've listened to your news station online, you've listened to your competitors online, and you've taped them all. What do we do next? Hey Buckaroos, welcome back to Music.com Academy. You're the new PD and we've gone through a bunch of steps. This is another step as we go through, and now we're down to the point where we're going to start analyzing the taping and the listening that you've done so far. And it's sort of simple, except it's really tedious work. I'm going to use two ways to do this. One, I'm going to use MediaBase because it's so much easier to see because everything is presented in such a great form. And certainly for me, for this course, I don't have to do a whole bunch of graphics. It's already there and done for you. And if you have MediaBase in your chain, oh my God, that's awesome for you. If not, you have to do it the manual way, and I will show you the manual way and go through that. This is also where you want to be thinking about strategy, because things are going to start popping into your mind as you're looking at the data and you're listening to the radio stations. And, if you're lucky, like for me and a bunch of other PDs that I know, a station starts to form in your head. You actually start to hear a station that doesn't really exist in the market. And you go like, hey, you know what? That actually could really work right here. That could be a good radio station in this particular environment. So, and then you're going to have to come up with a strategy to actually build that and why you're doing it and all that sort of stuff. So hold that thought in the back of your mind. For clarity, I just want to tell you this, and I'm going to do another lesson, hopefully the next lesson that we do, of what strategy actually is. Strategy is not a business plan typically. Business plans are usually planning. Strategy is something totally different, okay? Generally speaking, if you don't know what the outcome is going to be, it's strategy. If you know what the outcome is going to be, absolutely, it's planning, not the same thing. Back to analyzing. So what do we want to know right now from the stuff that we've done and the recordings that we have? Let's go through that. And as reminders, lessons number 22 and 41, I went through the manual version of doing these things, and I'm going to actually take out a recording that I did of 1 hour of a radio station, and I'll show you how to go through how to pick out where we're going on screen to help you along. Although I think if you're in radio you wouldn't know how to do this already, but I'm going to do it anyway. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for stop sets. Where are the stop sets, of your competitors and for you yourself? Now, if they sent you a log of your own radio station, you can skip your radio station for this, and certainly a backup of your music systems. That would help immensely for your own radio station, but for your competitors, and for ones, if you're not quite, up on the format and you've been listening to other radio stations in the format that you're going to, about to go to, but you don't really know the format, you want to be picking these things out. Where are the stop sets typically? The years of the songs, the current and the recurrent and gold ratios of the songs. How do they typically play them? What are your competitors doing? Their liners and their promos and stuff like that. What do they say? Do they just do really generic type stuff, or is their stuff creative? Are they saying some sort of a strategy? Can you pick out a strategy of another radio station in what they say? If a station is doing a strategy, trying to hold one particular line, or try to bend someone's, a listener being a listener's mind into thinking something that is true or not true, which I love to do. I love to mess with people's heads, with liners and promos and things, and make them think the way I want them to think, even if it wasn't true or it was only half true. You can pick it out in what a station does for liners and IDs and things like that. And as a general sense, you want to know what their current rotations are, what their recurrent rotations are, what their gold rotations are, and what their power gold rotations are. So what I mean by that is, how fast do they turn in the currents? Is it every hour and a half? Is it every 3 hours? Every 5 hours? The current big songs, how fast do they come around and repeat? Same thing for the recurrence, same thing for the power golds, same thing roughly for the overall gold that's not a power gold. So it might end up being something like 3.5, maybe even 5 hours if it's an AC radio station for the currents. It might be like a day and a quarter for the recurrents, maybe a little shorter, maybe a little longer. And for the power goals, it might be like maybe a day and a half, might be a day, might be 2 days. I like to kind of do power goals like every 2.5 days, 2.5 to 3, because I didn't want to burn them out. I like to play more of them in an hour, but not spin them so they come around so fast. so I can pack the hour with making the hour really a super solid, familiar, strong hour, but I didn't want to burn out the songs in the category while I'm doing it. Some other things that I would certainly want to know, what's the spot load of your competitors? Is it low? Is it medium? Is it super high? Can I use that to my advantage by, being under them or putting my stop sets maybe just in front of theirs? So people leave my radio station because I'm playing spots. Maybe they jump over to the competitor if you have a direct format competitor and they hear spots there and they go, oh, this sucks. And they come back to you and they take a long stretch with you. Maybe they ride you for 20, 25 minutes and you get the credit. How many songs are they playing each hour? What's the hit feel like of what they're playing each hour? Does it feel familiar? Does it feel unfamiliar? Do the songs feel like, they're really solid and they've been researched and they really know what they're doing, tried and true type stuff? You'd want to know that. What's the age of the music? Does it feel like kind of an older radio station, even though they're maybe playing current music? Or does it feel really, really current? And a really big one now, like, what do the jocks do? And you can get a really good feel for that from listening to the tapes that you've been making, because you can really go, hey, but you can literally time them, which I'll show you how to do, because you might do a stop set and the jocks are talking, and I'll just make this up, like maybe they talk 20 seconds and it's over with. They basically say nothing. Or they might be talking like a minute and 10, minute and 20, maybe even longer, but as you're listening to it, you go like, wow, that's pretty interesting. You're holding my interest. I was listening. I was into it. And then, okay, well, then you're up against somebody who's doing information and personality, and maybe even funny information and personality all rolled into one. In other words, you have your hands full, personality-wise, a little bit more than if the jocks are just doing nothing. Now, as you're getting all this data down, whether it's with MediaBase or doing it manually, there's a couple questions that you kind of want to ask yourself. Gee, is there any formats here that isn't really being addressed? It's like there's something missing. Is there a classic hits missing from the market? There's only a classic rock. Pretty much there's going to be an AC. That's almost a given. There's going to be an AC. If you're in the South, there's going to be a country radio station, at least one, maybe two. There's going to be a top 40. More than likely, there's going to be a classic rock, but there may not be an urban gold. There may not be, some other music format, or there may be two of everything. Like there's two CHRs, there's two classic rocks, there's two ACs. And you might be able to slip one station in between those because the music of those particular formats, classic rock against a classic rock, may be really wide somehow. Those are things you want to be looking for. And lastly, as you look at everything and you listen to things and you kind of feel it through, you have to ask yourself, is there any significant amount of listeners that are in the market? Are they being ignored, that nobody cares about? I'll give you an example of this. When I was in Detroit, I took over a radio station where the station was dead last in the market. It had a 0.3 share. That was like, you might as well save the electricity and just turn it off. But, okay, I'm the new PD. What do? And they had already started down a road, but I just thought they were doing it really bad, so I kind of changed the way that they programmed it. But I kept the initial strategy, which was to, age-wise, sit over the top of all the other radio stations. There was 4 other AC radio stations on FM, all of them pretty good, and all of them had money, and they were all definitely competitors, but they were all basically shooting for audience under 40 years old, 38 and down. We took the tact of, we're going to go for everybody over 40, and there was a sizable amount of audience. Actually, the audience now would be even larger, and if you want to shoot for people over the age of 40 or 45. That was a strategy, and it worked really well. We had awesome numbers, including people that were under the age of 40, especially women, lots of those. Let's go over to the computer and we'll start going through this stuff. We're going to do this 2 ways. One is going to be the manual way, and then I'm going to flip over and start doing the same thing in MediaBase, which is going to be so much easier for you. So this is the manual way. This is an hour that I taped. Remember I told you to tape your competitors, tape your own radio station, but for sure your competitors, to try to get an idea of what they're doing. Ideally, your really close competitors, in other words, the same format as you. What do they do? And find out a whole bunch of that information that we just went through. So this is 1 hour. And as you see here, it says 1800, just so you're not confused. This was actually an Edmonton station. I taped it in Toronto. There's a 2-hour time difference. So this is actually their 4 o'clock hour. And this is why I told you it's so important to start your taping at the top of the hour. Because this is 00, which is exactly 4 o'clock. And this whole hour is going to end exactly at 5 o'clock. So at any point along the way, if I stop this tape and want to know what time it is, I just need to look down at the bottom, like right now, where you see this red line. Right now, it's 30 minutes and 28 seconds into their hour and their time. It's exact. So when you look over here and you go, okay, what's going on? I mean, having already gone through this, I'm trying to speed this up for time for you. As you can see just by the waveform, this is an oddity. Most times you can't see the waveform like this. You got to do it. It takes, you got to really listen. But these are breaks where somebody is actually stopping to talk. You can see, the audio waves drop down. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And in here, there's songs or spots. So let's start going. And one last thing, YouTube flags copyright on music. Usually that's not a big deal. They just give the money to the copyright owner, which I could care less because this is a free channel. But for some of the copyrights like U2, they actually take your audio track and just blank it. So if I'm talking over a particular song that's a copyright problem, you don't hear me and you don't hear the explanation. So I'm going to try to avoid that by not giving YouTube very much my song time to be able to pick out anything I'm doing here, okay? So let's just start in here and see what we got. All right, I'll just start right there. I'm sure it's a song. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so there's 2 songs in. Now somewhere in here,
we have a now family member.
There's somebody talking. It's a jock talking. So let's assume it's right about here.
This conversation.
Maybe a little bit in front of that.
So this conversation.
Okay, she's talking right here, and the time we have is 7:28. So let's just say 7.5. Now, normally I would listen to this to try to get a feel for, gee, is she any good? Is there personality going on here? Is this something of interest? Or is she just saying, wasting time talking? Or is this like really engaging? I'd want to know that for every one of these talk segments. But I'm going to jump to the end, again, to show you what you should be doing. So I'm going to try to find the music. So let's just say it's here.
894669.
Join the conversation. Now radio.
Or, wink, wink, somebody you know. They do it.
Okay, there's the music starting. Okay, so we went in at 7.5. We're kind of out at 10.5. So this is the 3-minute break. Now, I've already gone through these a little bit and checked, and just so we can to speed this up, these are all 3-minute breaks. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5 of them. And each of these are 2 songs each. So it's 2 songs and a break, 2 songs and a break, and that's where they continue until we get over into this area. Again, you'd want to go through this and like, what song is this? What song is this? Write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down, and so on and so forth. And you'll see why, because I'm going to put it into the form that you would ideally have when I move over to MediaBase. So here's a song. They're going to come out of a break here and go into a song.
There's no stopping us right now.
There it is. All right. Now, somewhere over here, they might have 2 songs. They might have a break. Let's just see.
Now promise.
Are you ready for it?
It's this new soundproofing stuff.
Okay, break.
Coatings or blue light treatments, that's fit.
Break.
And plumbers to
Break.
Spectacular.
Oh, okay.
Select owners get up.
plus the
All right. Maybe here. Okay, hang on one second. So if we look down, we're at 51.35. All right, 51 and a half. And they're doing a promo of some sort here, a jingle, something. Let's see what it is.
Ginger, with your bank account, do you notice that your mom moves like a crazy amount of money through there, or what?
I used to share an account with my mom. These guys think that's pretty funny because I was like 38 years old.
102.3. Now radio.
Are you ready? It's finally time for your next adventure.
Okay, now this would be, was we already bounced through here. This is a spot break and a pretty decent long one. That was a nice morning show promo. I like that promo because they were actually doing something. You had a feel for the morning show. It wasn't just, hey, morning show's on tomorrow, listen. Okay, but whatever. You know, you didn't give me any reason why. And that, you get a little feel for what's going on, what they do. It was a really good morning show promo. Hopefully they change that a lot, you know, maybe every single day, but in an ideal world. All right, so let's jump ahead. So what did I just say we did? We went in 51 and a half. And what did they come out at this, baby? So let's just see here. Okay, song there. Okay, so they're coming out at roughly 59.
It'll be 47 minutes.
1, 2, 3, now radio.
So beginning to end there, they just had a 7.5 minute break. You'd want to go through and go, all right, how much time was for the promo? How much time was for the person talking, the jock on the air? Was there traffic in there or something? Because I think there was actually traffic in there, a really small little segment. And then how much, commercials were actually left? Now, this is 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, so you'd assume that they have a reasonably full log. And, maybe they have 6 minutes of spots, and that's the hour, 6-minute break. And again, this is a very successful radio station. They have really big numbers, but they're unique in that they do a lot of talking, a lot of social media talking, and, and they play different kind of music, which we'll maybe go into in some other lessons somewhere down the road. Lastly, one of the things with this, if you don't have MediaBase, this is just 1 hour. You cannot get an idea of the current rotations, and you cannot get an idea of any sort of power gold by this unless you tape a lot of hours. So if you want the current rotations, you're going to need to do this probably for at least 7 or 8 hours straight, because I don't know if too many stations that have 8-hour current rotations. They're going to be 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 5, maybe 5.5, somewhere in there. So you want to go out that many hours and keep track of the music until stuff starts to repeat. So if you taped, say from 9 till 6, there's 9 hours there, which is plenty of time. And some song may play in the 9 o'clock hour, and then all of a sudden it starts to replay again in, let's just say, the 1 o'clock hour. All right, well, what is that? It's just 4 hours rotation. And so that might be one song. You'd want to make sure that there's 2 or 3 or 4 songs doing that, coming around that fast. And then that you actually do absolutely hit the current rotations. You know what the repeat factor is of at least their fastest current songs. Getting an idea of power gold is a lot harder. And I'm going to do a MediaBase and jump immediately to 7 days, so we can look at it through that way. If not, you're actually going to have to tape 7 days or go online and hope that the station that you're looking at actually tells you what they're playing online, and you can sit and lay out 7 days worth of what they're printing on their websites. That'll be way more easy to understand when I move over to MediaBase and show it to you in printed out form. This is WCSX. It's a classic rock station in Detroit. I'm showing you this just to get you an idea of what could be online, but I got to tell you, I'm not quite sure why, because I had done some lessons about maybe 9-10 months ago, somewhere in there, showing you how you could get playlists off the net. And now when I go look, virtually all the companies have stopped doing that. This is one of the few rare companies and stations where you can actually get what they played. If I hit up here, listen live, you hear the music, but I have this pause at the moment. So, so it's not interfering with me talking to you, but this is what they played. And this is what you're looking for as you go to a website. This one's amazing because, they give you a huge amount of time here. It just saves you a little bit of time trying to find out what was played off the original tapes that you've done, which I just showed you, because that becomes hard, and you actually have to know the song. Now, what do you do with that? This is the form that you want to put your raw data in other words, that taping of each hour, okay? You want to do this to get a feel for what's going on. So this is the 4 o'clock hour of that station, Now Radio. This is a different day than I taped, but it doesn't really matter. As we counted it up, it was probably, 11 or 12 songs, and they do 11 songs. Same hour, 4 o'clock hour. But the point of this is, here's the songs themselves, and as you look over, this is what becomes important. You're probably going to have to look this up if you don't know them off the top of your head, and be rough. I mean, you can be off by a year or two, it doesn't really matter. But you don't want to have something where you have no idea what the song is or when it was out, because then you're going to have to go looking on Google, looking for the release date. Really easy to find, but it's just more work. Again, MediaBase has done it for you. So as you can see on this radio station, having not seen this before, this is a definite interesting radio station in that the 1, 2, 3, 4 recurrents that they're playing in this particular hour. 4 recurrents and 1, 2, 2 currents. 4 recurrents, 2 currents in the 4 o'clock hour. Also, looking at the gold, at least in this particular hour, they don't go back past 2011. That's a pretty recent radio station. Looking ahead to the 5 o'clock hour, what do we got here? We have 2 currents, 3 currents, 4 currents, 5 currents, and no recurrents. Big interesting to go to the morning show. Wow, morning show, hardly any songs at all. One last look, we'll look at the 10 o'clock hour. Recurrents, 1, 2, 3 recurrents, 1 and 1 current. So this is what you want to get out of doing your taping and then picking the stations apart. Or if you have MediaBase, this is great. Just look at this. You want to get, what do they do? Your competitor. One of the other things you want to try to pick out, and you can do it here by, just kind of counting up the way we were just doing. But you could go to here, if you have MediaBase, like I showed you before, and you could get a feel for what they do. So the amount of currents and recurrents is 60% of what they're playing, okay? And 50, 50, 45. Vintage analysis, this says volumes when you look at this. This is a very current radio station. I think generally if you're looking at a 5-day period like this, if some song has been played 4 or 5 times in that short of a period, it's probably one of their stronger songs of somebody that you're competing with. Like, assuming it's a gold. I mean, obviously if it's a current, it's going to get played way more than that. But Kelly Clarkson, it's a gold song, 2011, Stronger, It Doesn't Kill You. So it's played on the 9th, 10th, 12th, and then again on the 12th, and then on the 14th. Same thing, Killers, 9th, 12th, 13th, 14th. Again, you'd have to deal with the all-night show being in there and take it out because it might have just been repeated on the all-night show simply because it's being replayed from the midday as a chunk and it's not really being scheduled per se. This would probably be one of the really strong songs, as is Mr. Brightside. I'm going to get away from that station in Edmonton because a lot of the songs that are there are Canadian content, and if you're not in Canada, you're not going to know what those songs are. So it may be confusing, it may be looking very, very unfamiliar to you, and you go like, I'm not sure what's going on here. So I'm going to switch over to MediaBase and go to a regular, a station, an AC station, and that's going to bring up different panels. Let's just take AC, sure, why not? And then, this is all the stations inside the AC panel. Let's just pick one. What haven't we done here? We've never done this one here. Okay. I mean, this is the usual stuff that you see on MediaBase. And all of this is helpful, but I'm going to try to skip through this and jump ahead into something else. They have a lot of different things you can look at, to station playlist, to historical year to date, which is going to give you a lot of different songs, core artists. But I'm going to go to the 12-week trend here. Now, first off, you want to think about this because this is going to have current songs and it's going to have gold songs in here. But just bear the math out of this. 12 weeks is 84 days. If a song was playing every other day, it would be half of that 84, so it would be 42. So if something has 42 spins in 12 weeks, you're pretty good chance that this is a strong song to this particular radio station. And if it's above that, then it's even stronger. As for instance, this is 386, so this is getting pounded a lot, but it's a current song. So let's move down into something that's clearly a gold. Here, the 18th most spun song was Toto in Africa, and it's played 130 times in 84 days. So this baby is coming around pretty fast. Now, some of this is going to be on the all-night show for sure, which you kind of don't really want to count that into your thinking, but this for sure is one of their power goals of some sort. It's a power, maybe they have a power older category, or they just have a plain power gold category. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is, if you want to get an idea of what a station's really strong songs are, or a bunch of stations' strong songs are in a particular format, you just need to sort of look at these and go, all right, this starts at 386. We've already said it's 84 days, so half of that is 42. So let's just make it 50, okay? 50 plays or above, and this is probably going to be a strong song. So let's just start going down to 50. A lot of songs here. Okay, somewhere in here. So there's 50 songs, 3 doors down, and one I'm gone. We're 229 songs down, minus whatever the current and the recurrents are that you identify as, okay, this is obviously a current song. This is obviously a recurrent song, so this is probably going to be maybe, I don't know, 190, 180 songs. So these are going to be really, really strong. Now, you don't need 180 of them to be the Power Gold. You maybe need, you need to pick a number of how fast you want them to turn, but you might say, I want 100. All right, so there's 100 Power Gold. You take the 100 strongest ones that you want to hear on your radio station a lot. So, and that's how this works. And it's nothing more really complicated than that. Let's go to year to date, and I'm going to go for formats, songs by format, and I'll give you the full wide picture on this. And the format that we'll choose will be, again, we'll stay on AC, and we only want to show gold, and we want to show, I don't know, let's go to 1,000 deep. Okay, these are the big songs in the AC format. And let's see how far down this goes. We have 1,000 rows and they have 500 songs. So they go 500 deep. Way more than enough to build any radio station. That's really great. And you can really see what everybody else is playing, and you can go through and go, these are big songs. These are the ones that I want to play. Let me pick and choose from these. Oh, that's interesting. Whitesnake, on an AC station. On a lot of AC stations, obviously. So anyway, it's cool. The software is cool, and this is what you need to be thinking about. This is what you need to try to do if you have MediaBase, and if not, you got to try to manually recreate this, which this part, what I'm showing you right here, this is virtually going to be impossible to recreate manually. There's just going to be no way to do it unless you're psychotic and you tape radio stations, for months at a time, constantly, and then go through song by song, listening to them and writing them down. I mean, that would be, who in the right mind would ever do that? Let's move on to jocks and imaging and strategy. Certainly you're going to listen to your air checks and what are the jocks doing and what are the imaging, what does it sound like and all that. But I'm just going to pull up WBEB, which is in Philadelphia, a really good AC radio station. And let's just take a look through, on MediaBase and what do they say, and how are they approaching things? Because it's good to get a feel for stuff like that. Now, as I skim this, and I'm going to see if I can find another radio station which does not do stuff like this, but they're trying to be clever here. And, without actually hearing the IDs, it's hard to tell whether some of this cleverness or funniness actually, hits the mark 100%, because a lot of that is in the production. But I'm going to make an assumption that it's probably really good because the station always has great ratings. But here, scientists have found that listening to music increases blood flow. So here's to your health. Okay, kind of okay. Now here's a different one. One good thing about CrossFit. Now there's a lot of people who know how to get a tractor tire off the road. Now you'd have to kind of know about CrossFit. If you ever went into one of those CrossFit gyms, they make you lift up these big giant tires, basically instead of weights, and roll them and stuff like that. But it's different. This is something, I'm just looking through here. If it involves cute animals, you better believe we're going to post it. What I get out of this, you probably will get something different, but what I get out of this is they're trying to engage the mind a little bit, because it's not the typical we play 12 in a row, which is white noise and it just blows right by somebody. This one, they're probably trying to at least do something that makes somebody think for if even a second or two. Curiosity, here's a great way to get away from the world for the next 5 minutes. Your mind might lock on that. What's that? More music. Oh, okay. I personally would love to see them even a little bit more clever, but some of this is sort of like the lampshade on the head type person, to me. But then I'm probably being a little harsh on this as to what's funny and what isn't funny. Moving down into this different section, which is, these are more straight ahead, more, more of the sort of the typical of many radio stations. Now, this is another one where, they're going back to the cute again. And it's a nice play on words for comparison. If your day is like a tall latte or a grande latte, we're making the day better with more music and more variety. So basically they're saying, in a different sort of way, we play a lot. Nice. Let's pull a different AC radio station. How about WLIF in Baltimore? As you can see from looking at this, hopefully you can see it. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, so different things stick out to me. This, to me, looks like it's way more of the normal, tried and true radio stuff. And it's kind of, I don't know, I would look at this as sort of good and bad. The good parts are, as you look through here, they're telling people that it's an 80s, 90s radio station and it's kind of continual. So that part's good. But some of these are sort of, I don't know, kind of boring to me. And when I say boring, it's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with them, but I think it's going to be hard for somebody's mind to engage because it's just the same old talk that you hear on so many different radio stations, probably in the same market, that it becomes white noise. This one is not that, though. Seniors are graduating soon, things are warming up, and you're turning this up. Today's 101.9. Okay, cool. That one's good. Baltimore's 101.9. Again, in one ear, out the other. They have a few things on here where it's like you can talk to the hand. You can talk to the hand because we're all that in a bag of chips. I'm not sure why they're talking to the hand. Let's move down and see what else they have here. Here's a decent one. It's spring, finally. Windows down, radio's up. Today's 101.9. Okay. School's wrapping up. Kids are getting antsy. Give them something to dance to. Yeah, ugly. Okay. Maybe that's a drop. I don't get why that's in there. Again, I'm being kind of harsh on picking stuff up. One more station. And again, I'm going to pick one of these at random. Let me take one more AC. We'll stay on the AC thing. What is this? KEZK. Again, very much tried and true radio. They're basically continually saying 80s and today. All your favorites, 80s and today. Kicking off another long set, 80s and today. All your favorites, 80s and today. Back to your favorites, 80s and today. This actually, it's funny, as I'm looking at this, I'm sort of hearing this produced in my head, and this actually could be a pretty nice station if these are done right, even though they're very straight ahead and sort of bland. And that's a really fine line. So, comparing this radio station, it's funny, both of these are Odyssey stations. And comparing this Odyssey station, which is 80s and today, and the other is 80s and 90s, this one is being just straight ahead, and they're getting to the point, and, nuts and bolts, boom. And that's what they're saying. The other one is sort of trying to be cute as they're doing nuts and bolts. And to my eye of looking at it, again, I'm being super critical here, but it's kind of like the cuteness of what they're trying to do was getting in the way of the nuts and bolts. Where this radio station, as you look at these things, it's just straight ahead, nuts and bolts, not a lot of cuteness going on. And if you want to go that route, basically own it. Step in and own it. And that's sort of what I liked about the B104 in Philadelphia. They were trying to be, cute, let's just say cute or interesting or however you want to put it. And they're like, this is what we're doing and we're going to own it. But that's just me. But as you try to image your radio station and write for your radio station and do some sort of a strategy for your radio station, you have to ask yourself, what do I do with these things? Because this is what you have to work with. Lastly, I don't know if any one of those three stations that I showed you actually have strategy going on. Strategy to me for a radio station would be where, let's say you veer off and you go into Christmas music for the month of December, or maybe even longer than that. That's a strategy to bring in people, new people who don't normally listen to your radio station, and hope that they stick when you finish doing the Christmas music, in January or just after Christmas, and hopefully you pick up some extra audience that stays there. That's a strategy of basically getting new customers in. This is more imaging. It's kind of like a sign outside your store saying, we sell hot dogs, or we do hamburgers, or this is a furniture store, or this is an Amish furniture store. It's describing just normal stuff, not a strategy. It's just, here's what we do. Also, the very next lesson, hopefully I can get it done, it's going to be strategy. And I'm going to give you a couple real radio strategies that I went through, and to give you a sense of what a strategy is versus what a plan is. Not the same thing. If you get anything out of these, definitely subscribe. Also, if you kind of like radio, I started to do a separate playlist where I'm going through some of the really great jocks that were at CKLW and a whole bunch of other radio stations, and I'm doing long form interviews with them, and they're really pretty interesting. So if you're a jock and you want to get a feel for what it was like, you know, back being a jock in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and actually even into the 2000s, and some of them are doing it right now still, you get a feel for what the cream of the crop thought and how they approach things and all that stuff, and you will know pretty much most of the names. You go like, oh my God, I can watch an interview with him for an hour or 2 hours. Some of them actually go 2 hours. They were actually 3 hours, and I cut them down to 2, because there was so much that was good in them. It's like, oh, I don't want to cut this. I just don't. So anyway, if you want to see that, just subscribe to the channel and you'll get all of those. So until the next lesson, see ya.